Well, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're doing part 3 of me reacting to the daily shorts that I made on my big summer van life road trip. If you're new here, I was just on a 72-day van life road trip. I went through BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, solo in my 1998 GMC Safari van. I did all sorts of things, and I made a short for every single day that I was on my trip. One of my subscribers originally suggested that I make more shorts, so I was like, you know what? I'm making one every day. So I did. And then after month 1, I reacted to 31 days worth of shorts. Month 2, 30 days. And now we're going to do month 3, which was actually only 10 days, 11 days. It was 10 or 11 days. We'll find out. With that being said, I'm basically just going to play a short, and then we're going to react to it. I'll give you some backstory, maybe tell you about the day. I'll just talk about it. That's pretty much the gist of it. So with that being said, let's just play the short. Well, it's day 62 of me posting a short for every day I'm on my big van life road trip. And today, I finally had to say goodbye to my dad's campsite breakfasts and hello to the open road. After 4 days of camping with my parents, I'm back in the solo adventure mode. I made a stop by the train tracks to assess what I'm doing, and after a few hours of sitting here, I decided I needed to go to Calgary. I was originally thinking of going straight into Kananaskis Country, but after starting my drive, I just felt like going to Calgary. Eventually I settled into this gravel parking area next to whatever you classify this train as, the subway, the SkyTrain. It doesn't really matter. I slept pretty good, but I did wake up with the thought of, why am I even here? So first of all, that train is the C train. It's the Calgary train. I guess that's what they call it here in BC. Well, not where I'm from. We just have buses. But in Vancouver, they have the SkyTrain. But I think it's kind of like a subway, but I really didn't know what to call it. But I think it is the Calgary C train. But to go back, that was the last day of my breakfasts that my dad made. So I spent 4 days with my parents in Radium and then Banff, which you would have seen in the last month of review. Anyways, my dad made a breakfast every single day on his barbecue. He's got a little skillet, like cast iron skillet pan on his barbecue. And every morning he cooked eggs, sausage, hash browns, and then we had toast. Either my mom or me cooked the toast on my toaster that I carried out. Which, hey, really good trade. If all you have to do is cook some toast and then someone else makes you breakfast, that is a great trade. But I do want to say those breakfasts were awesome. It was a great way to start your day with an awesome breakfast that you didn't have to cook for yourself. Also kind of wild that my dad was cooking it because my entire life, I never seen my dad cook anything that wasn't microwaved beans and wieners or pancakes. I don't know when he picked up cooking, but at the campsite makes a wicked breakfast. Yeah, I think in this video I went to Calgary, which man, I think I kind of regret doing it. Not that there's anything wrong with Calgary. There's nothing wrong with Calgary, but it was my own mindset, what I was doing, the time of the trip. It kind of didn't really make sense for me to go to Calgary, but I didn't really know what to do. What I wanted to do was go to Kananaskis, but I didn't really know what I was doing, where I was going. I needed to have some time to do some research, and then I also had to I think I actually made my month 2 recap in Calgary. So I needed some time, some buffer time to figure out what I was doing. So that's why I decided to go to Calgary. But it was probably a mistake. But before I talk too much about Calgary, I'm just going to play day 2 because I know they're connected. Well, it's day 63 of me posting a short for every day I'm on my big van life vacation. And I slept by a train, which is only fitting because I woke up next to a train as well. I spent last night by the Calgary C train, so in the morning I went to a park to use the bathrooms. This is Fish Creek Provincial Park, and the bathrooms were quite nice. It was pretty windy, but I decided to go for a walk. I followed the trails down by the creek, just exploring. Then I accidentally stumbled on a naked guy at an apparent nude beach. So I hightailed it back to the van, then to Canadian Tire for lunch at this food truck. I had a Polish sausage and fries, and it was good. Then I went to the Cochrane Library to upload a YouTube video and hit the road. That was the last non-short YouTube video that I'll post on this trip, because as my days wind down, it'll be an all-out sprint to do as many things as possible. You might not hear from me for a few days, as I'm heading up into Kananaskis Country. But first, a nice quiet night by the train. So as you can see, I slept next to the C train. I found that spot on iOverlander, and it said it wasn't loud, which was probably a lie. It was kind of loud, but I did sleep all right. I don't know if those trains run all night or if they just kind of go kind of late, but I believe when I fell asleep, they were still going. And when I woke up, they were also going. But overall, not that loud compared to like being next to a real train, which I also did sleep next to that real train. So it wasn't that bad. And then there was like apartment buildings behind, so it was kind of a good spot to camp other than the train. But again, I dealt with the train. And at this point, I was sleeping with my headphones in because I was scared of mice. So overall, not the worst spot in Calgary there. But the whole reason I went to Calgary, I think, was sort of flawed. And then I didn't know what to do there. So I kind of did nothing. Like I went to that Fish Creek Park kind of just as a meander. But there's nothing special, at least that I saw, in Fish Creek Park. If you want to go for a walk or a run. If you lived in Calgary, it would probably be awesome to go for a run there or whatever. But as a tourist that's done all sorts of stuff, there's nothing spectacular about it. And then I went and got a hot dog in the parking lot of Canadian Tire. Frankly, Abbotsford has the best hot dog stand in the Canadian Tire parking lot in the country. Not a question, that's a statement. So going there to do it is kind of a bummer. It's like, why did I go to Calgary? And it kind of does feel, especially looking back, it does kind of feel like I just straight up wasted 2 days and all the effort driving there for like no reason. Because I didn't really do anything. I didn't see anything. It really was a waste of my time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Calgary, nor do I think there's anything wrong going to Calgary. But going there with no plan, for no reason, was definitely a mistake on this trip. Also a mistake, that campsite that's right next to the main train tracks there. It's called, I think this town is like Seebe, Seebe. And I spent a night there last year. And I had the worst sleep because the train is so loud and it ran all night pretty often. It was so bad. And it was so bad. And then this year I went back and stayed there again. It's like, why did I do that? I know it was terrible. I literally warned someone the day before how terrible it was. And then I ended up going back there because I was going into Kananaskis. And it's a good jumping off point to go to Kananaskis. But it's like, all of this should have just been straight up avoided by me skipping the whole Calgary portion of this trip, going straight into Kananaskis. And instead of trying to figure stuff out, just do it and figure it out later. Because all the time I wasted driving and stuff was just a waste of time. And that's my views on Calgary. Let's just play the next one. Well, welcome to the beautiful Kananaskis Lake. This has been my home for the last 2 days. And as far as my daily shorts are concerned, this is day 64 and day 65 of my big summer van life road trip. So first of all, the drive here was stunning. I was able to score the final lakeside campsite. Well, kind of. You had to walk through these woods, then continue down a ways until you eventually get to the beach, which is spectacular. This place is super windy though, so I had dinner and winded down by a fire. Day 2 started with me seeing this rabbit, and then I went for a hike. This hike follows the shore of Upper Kananaskis Lake, passes by this sweet waterfall, then headed up into the forest. Way up. Eventually, when the climb ended, I had this unbelievable view of Roston Lake. I continued on to the end of the trail, where I saw this playful little guy. Judging by his thickness, I think he puts on a show for everybody holding snacks. Do you think anything lives in that cave? Anyways, I enjoyed this view one more time, hiked back down, followed the Lakeshore Trail a little longer, until I found a nice spot of my own to enjoy the view. Then it was back to camp for lunch, which brought out the birds. Is that a crow or a raven? I should learn more things. Anyways, that's been my time in Kananaskis. Not bad at all. Okay, so Kananaskis Country was... I don't even know how to describe it. It was like very hit and miss. The scenery, the beauty of Kananaskis Country, potentially the best place I went to on my trip, based solely on looks. But as we know, looks are not everything. Part of my problem mentally, I went in wanting to go canoeing in Kananaskis. I wanted to canoe on both Kananaskis lakes. That's what I wanted to do. So I went and I camped at the Interlakes campground. I will say, as I was driving to the Interlakes campground, first of all, you have to buy a pass to go into it. So I had to buy, to camp 2 nights, I had to buy a 3-day pass because you got day 1, day 2, day 3. So you had to buy 3 days worth of passes, which cost you $15 a day. And then you're driving, I think on like, it might be like the highest paved road in Canada or in no, it's not in BC, it's in Alberta. It's like a really high paved road, but it's like a mountain parkway and you go up through the mountains. Very nice drive, but it was very windy on the day I was there. And I was like getting blown all over the road. My van is not aerodynamic and it, especially with the canoe on the roof, takes a lot of wind, blows you side to side. Not an enjoyable drive other than the scenery. I get to camp and then it was so windy. Campsite was nice. I show up, Interlakes campground. I think I showed up on a Thursday and I camped Thursday, Friday. And then I showed up. Apparently it's larch season when I was there. So it's busier than you would expect in late September, I guess. So I showed up on the one side, which is the lake view side. All the campsites were booked, except for campsite number 35, which is the one I stayed at, which had the obstructed view, but access to the lake. And then there was one at the very far end, which I didn't stay at it because I decided 35 is better. It had like it was at the end of the lake, but like the lake ended and then there's a campsite. It's like you sort of look to the lake, but it's further away, I think, than like where I was. So even though there's trees in my way, I felt like it was a better campsite, better view, and better access to the water, which I did not use because I could not canoe. So I sat in my campsite that first day, and it was so windy, and I had just wasted 2 days in Calgary, and I was in like a bad mood. So I just kind of went there, sat at the table. I think for a while I had hoped the weather was going to get better, and it just never did. I thought the wind would calm down throughout the day. Maybe I could go for an evening paddle. Lakes aren't that big. I thought I could go paddle it at like 5 p.m., go out there, be out there for the sunset, but it just stayed windy the whole time. And I could have went out there onto the water and puttered around in the wind, but it's not fun to do that. And as a guy that had just spent 60 days already out in the wilderness, out canoeing in good conditions, to go out into bad conditions and just battle wind all day, it's not worth it. So I just sat there kind of in a bad mood, bad feelings the whole time. So I just ruined the first day. Also, along with the pass you have to buy for $15, campsite was $31. Not the end of the world, but then that's now $46 to camp there for 1 day. And then you add on top, they're selling firewood for $10 a bundle. That first day I had a fire, which I used one bundle. That was it. It lasted me an hour, and I had a small crappy fire, which really didn't even keep up for the fact that the wind was so cold. It was a waste of $10. So I was just in a bad mood. But then day 2, obviously I decided I had to do something better. I still wanted to canoe, but that was off the table because of the wind. So I went and did that hike, and that hike was awesome. You hike along Upper Kananaskis, which has a tremendous view. I'm not going to say the whole way because sometimes you're obstructed by trees, but it's like a nice, flat, up and down lakeside trail. And then you kick up and go straight uphill to that Roston Lake. It's really steep, and then it sucks. And I'm like, man, am I going to make it? I'm so out of shape. And then eventually it levels off. And once you get to the lake, just absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning, totally worth it for that hike. Beautiful location. And then you walk to the end of the lake, you got that wicked view behind. Awesome. Totally worth it. Great way to spend a day. Then I walked down. I walked a little further along the lake, just hung out for a while. And then I walked back, and then went back to my my campsite. But then at that point, it's like I had nothing else to do. I didn't really know what else was around. I didn't want to go take on another big hike. So it's like you can just look at the lakes, but you can't canoe them. So it's like kind of dull. But at that point, I realized I needed to buy more firewood and have like a real fire that night. So I did. And I enjoyed my fire. I had a 2-bundle fire, which is okay. And then it got quite cold that night. But overall, it's like, again, it's kind of like a bittersweet time because it was, everything I did was awesome. The scenery was so amazing. But that wind kind of wrecked everything, and it put me in a bad mood. And then it just kind of like, I wasn't able to feel the joy that I wanted to feel because of like the wind and the letdown. It just was kind of a bummer, which itself is a bummer because I was in such a beautiful place. But anyway, let's play the next one because I believe I'm getting out of Kananaskis. Well, welcome to day 66 of me posting a short for every day I'm on my big van life road trip. And today, I'm headed back into BC. This is actually my second time heading back into BC, but this time I'm going to be here to stay. But before that, I need to get out of Kananaskis. So today I'm driving the Smith-Dorion Trail, which is super washboardy, but very scenic. I drove this way entirely to check out Spray Lake, which was very windy, but totally worth it. Then I hit the road again on my way to Canmore, where I stopped for breakfast. That was just okay. I should have just driven to Banff. But either way, I was driving through it now, then through Kootenay National Park too. I did this same drive but in reverse like a week ago, but one thing I skipped was actually soaking in Radium Hot Springs. Ooh, look at those sexy feet. After that soak, I was back on the road and headed to Invermere. Once I got there, I discovered that the Dilly food truck was closed. Oh, what could have been. All I could do now was just keep driving. I drove like 350 kilometers a day, a long day for sure, but it feels good to be back in BC. Living the van life, Riverside, making smash burgers. So Spray Lakes, that was another lake I wanted to canoe. The reason I went to Kananaskis, I wanted to canoe upper and lower Kananaskis, at Interlakes, and then on the way out I was going to canoe on Spray Lakes. That was the entire plan and reason I went there. But because of the wind that was there, the whole 3 days I was there, that just made it unfeasible. So from Interlakes to Spray Lake, you go on a terrible road. It was so washboardy. I say terrible. I guess it's not terrible. It depends how you view roads. But it was so washboardy. And if you don't know what washboard, it's like, it's washboardy. Just look it up. It's just so bumpy and vibrating. Just awful. So I think it's like 80K, 100K on that gravel road that's super washboardy. So you're going slow. I said it was totally worth it in that clip. I don't know if that was true. It kind of depends on your mindset. And it was interesting to go off there, but it's like driving for 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever it was on that washboard road. It really did suck. So if you're not mentally ready to be bounced around and vibrated, it was not worth it. And earlier on this trip, my muffler fell apart on a washboard road in Valemont because it was just so bumpy and vibrated my muffler apart. And like something like that could have very easily happened on that road to Spray Lakes. It didn't, but it easily could have. And it was just a long, rough road. Kind of a bummer. So it took a lot of the joy out of that day. But again, it was all very beautiful. The scenery around, very beautiful. So if you're ready to get beaten around, definitely worth going there. And I really wish I could have canoed in that water, but it was so windy, it's just not feasible. And then leaving from Spray Lakes, going towards Canmore, the road was even worse. There's like a bunch of construction, and it was like down to like one lane in a lot of it, and it's like super windy, and they were doing construction. It was just a huge pain in the butt to get there. So now, like on this trip, it's like I had 2 days wasted in Calgary. I don't want to say my time in Kananaskis was wasted because that's not true, but it's like I now had 3 days stacked of, we'll just say, not getting my way in Kananaskis. The drive was very tedious. Then once I got to Canmore, I was hyped up to get that breakfast, and it was just okay. Probably, I can't remember how much I paid. Definitely wasn't cheap, that cafe, but it was just fine. And it's like, at this point, I was so ready to go back into BC. And when I crossed that border through Banff into Kootenay National Park and went to the hot springs in Radium, it's like I needed that so bad. I just needed to get out of Alberta. Again, I have nothing against Alberta for the most part. But it's like I was just kind of done with it all. And being that it was in Alberta, I just needed to turn the page on that book, get back into BC, soak in the hot spring, and just like reset and go from there. It was a bummer to not be able to go to the Dilly food truck in Invermere. Earlier this trip, I went there and had a breakfast burrito, a pulled pork breakfast burrito, and it was so good. It was the best meal I've had. Best meal I had on the whole trip, even better than my dad's breakfast is. It was so good, and I was hyped up to go there for dinner, whatever, it's like an early dinner, an afternoon meal. And I was so hyped to go there. I was going to get that giant burger with the egg on it. Anytime there's a burger with an egg on it, I'm in. But then I drove there. I could have looked it up. And also, it was on the way regardless. But I went there, and it was closed. It's like, oh, man. Everything is going against me right now. So I was in a bad mood. But with that being said, I just kept driving. Once I was in BC, that spot I stayed at, I've now stayed there 3 years in a row on all 3 of my big summer van life vacations. It is in Skookumchuck, BC. It is just a spot on the river. Again, I found it on iOverlander. And it's an awesome little spot right on the river. Last year, I drove through human poop on the way there, which was a bummer. But overall, like it's a great little spot. So it's nice to be there. It feels a little nostalgic. And it's just down the road from a rest stop, which I actually crashed my drone last year at. I did check this year at that rest stop for my drone. I did not see it. I didn't expect to find it. I don't really remember what tree it crashed it into. And if it had fallen out of the tree onto the ground, it's almost impossible that somebody hasn't found it if it was findable, because it's been a whole calendar year since it fell. But anyways, it was really good to be back in BC. Let's just play the next one. Well, it's day 67 of me posting a short for every day I'm on my big summer van life adventure. 67, 6-7. From my understanding, that number is super hot online right now. I don't really know why, because I'm 3'7", as in I'm 37, and I'm not terminally online. I'm actually so not online, I'm literally outside right now, and we're going canoeing. So this is Moy Lake, and this is me canoeing Moy Lake. As you can see, Moy Lake is absolutely beautiful. And after canoeing the main part of the lake, it substantially narrows into this little channel. Then after paddling that narrow section, past this janky bridge, it opened back up into another section of lake, where I found a nice beach to pull up on, waited out a train, crossed the tracks, went to the Moy General Store, and bought a gourmet paddling lunch. Then I was ready for the long paddle home. And that's been canoeing Moy Lake. Man, I hope nobody's in there. So to start, I don't understand the 6'7", 67 thing that's going online on the internet right now. Apparently, like, everyone is making 67 references. I don't know when this happened. I feel like it started while I was on my trip, and I'm half in range, half out of range, so I miss things. But that was one thing I don't know. I don't get it. But it was fun to make the joke. And like I said, I'm 37. So I'm not really into internet jokes at this age. I am past my prime. Things have moved on. Culture has moved on without me. And I don't really get the thing. But anyways, I canoed Moy Lake in this episode. And it was such an awesome paddle. I think I paddled like 22K that day. And it was awesome. The lake was beautiful, albeit very smoky. The smoke was unexpected, I guess. But as soon as I crossed into BC, it was just filled with smoke. I think there was a prescribed burn in the area. But anyways, I don't really know. Sometimes, well, a lot, like the 6'7", I just don't know about things. You're just going about your way, and it is what it is. That was such an awesome paddle. I found out that there was a fish and chips place in Moy, and I started in Moy Provincial Park, which is 10 kilometers away from Moy, the town. And there's Moy Fish and Chips there. I was like, perfect. That'll make for a great video. And a great day canoeing, too. So I paddled, and I paddled through that narrow... had a great time paddling. Paddled through that narrow section. And then I pushed it to town. To go, just literally to go to the fish and chips place. That's why I went there. I could have just stopped at the end of that narrow section. Once I got... Moy Lake is in two sections. Big section, narrow section, big section. I guess that's 3 sections. But it's got these 2 big sections of lake. Once I pulled out into that second section of lake, I could have been done. And in hindsight, I probably should have just been done there. Cook something for myself. Have a meal in a bag that I packed with me. But I decided I need to go to that fish and chips place. I'm not a big fish and chips guy, but they also sell chicken strips. But I was going to have fish and chips because if you're in Moy, you go to Moy Fish and Chips. That's just what you do. There's like 2 restaurants in Moy. One of them's fish and chips. The other, I don't even know what it was. But it's like, I'm going to Moy Fish and Chips. Once I get there, I park my canoe, wait for the train to pass, walk into town, which is like a 3-minute walk from where I beached my canoe. And I go up there, and the lady sees me, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we're closed. Closed for the season. We'll be open next June or July." And it's like, man, I just paddled for 2+ hours, 3 hours to get here, and now you're closed for the season. It was such a bummer. And then, like I said, I've now been stacking up losses for like 5 days. It's like, man, finally I get out here, do exactly what I want to do, paddle this beautiful lake, long distance, is awesome, having this great time. And then it's like, nah, we're closed. It was like, oh, I was so bummed, so annoyed. Yeah, it's pretty much the worst. I have nothing against that lady. She was closed for the season. I showed up late. It was like 2:30, 3 p.m. on a Sunday, which was it was the last Sunday that she was open. She probably ran out of product, and that was it for the season. So it's not on her. It's on me for showing up when I did. But it's just such a bummer. And it's like, can a guy not catch a break? Anyways, let's just play the next one. Well, welcome to day 68 of me posting a short for every day I'm on my big van life road trip. And last night, I spent the night here in the Ryan rest stop. I am in Ryan, BC, which is outside of Yak, which is outside of Creston. I don't really know where exactly I am, other than I'm at the Ryan rest stop. I spent last night here. It was great, but the sign says to limit your stay to 8 hours, and I've already been here for 12. So with that being said, I'm going to go to the bathroom and get out of here. So about that bathroom, it was a little frightening. Well, maybe a lot frightening. But it was definitely time to go. It was a little chilly this morning, but as I'm headed towards home, that just makes for a good driving day. If I'm honest, a large part of me was totally ready to drive home today, especially after I was stuck going 30 kilometers an hour behind this hay truck. Which, now that I think about it, I wonder if that truck was headed to that ostrich farm. Sorry, not a political show. Eventually I descended into Salmo, where I went to this food truck for lunch, R&D Barbecue Nation, where I got this huge breakfast/lunch and tried to take a video of a helicopter overhead. After that, I walked on some local trails and went to the river. At this point, I realized that I ate way too much, but the river was great nonetheless. I headed back through the forest, back to the van, and back on the road. This time I kept driving until I got to my favorite lake, the beautiful Slocan Lake. Go fishy, go fishy. So that rest stop was actually an awesome place for me to spend the night. I think when I woke up, there's four, maybe five, I think it's 4 vehicles. Could have been 5 vehicles. I did not hear anybody come in because I had my headphones in when I slept and I had my blackout curtains up, blackout panels. I didn't hear anybody come in, so I was kind of surprised when I woke up and there was that many vehicles. And like I said, it was a good spot to spend the night. It's off the highway and like treed off of the highway, so you don't really hear it. I didn't really hear it. I was also tired from canoeing all day. Great little spot. I was concerned that I was going to get mice in my van. I don't really know why, but I just had this fear. I always have a fear of mice because I have had mice, but I had this fear that the mice were going to come because I was like, people come here, they spend the day, they probably leave food out. I'm like, oh man, this place is going to be a haven for mice. I just know it. And I did not have a mouse. I did not see any mice. I really don't know if there's actually any mice, but I did have a fear. I also sometimes have a fear of camping in places like that, very accessible places. It's like, is there going to be a serial killer? That kind of thing. And I think I did watch a video that night on just like a true crime type of video on YouTube because it has cell reception. Unless I just had a recorded video. I think I had cell reception. But I listened to some sort of true crime thing and then I was at the rest stop and I was like, ooh, now I'm nervous of mice and other people. But it ended up being fun. And it was, like I said, it was a pretty good little spot for what it was. But that bathroom in the morning, seeing all those spiders, was not a fan. Not a fan at all. But they did not bother me. I went to the bathroom. And then getting out of there, headed to Salmo. Like I said, I got stuck behind that hay truck. I have no idea if that hay truck was going to that ostrich farm. And if you don't know, that ostrich farm is big news here in BC. Very political issue. I personally don't care. But yeah, the government is trying to put down a bunch of ostriches that may or may not be affected by some sort of bird flu. And then it's a huge, I don't even know if it's like a right-wing thing or like an alternative conspiracy theory type of people. They're very, very supportive of these ostriches. I don't really know, but like I said, when I went to that food truck, I was looking up the news of the day. And then I guess they had built a hay pen around these ostriches, either to wall them off for privacy or to wall them off so they could safely shoot them, maybe. But then some protesters or people, allegedly, I don't really know, had burned down all the hay, so they needed more hay to come in. So then there was hay trucks that came in. They had to like block off, they may not had to, but they had like blocked off the license plates of the hay company, of the hay trailers, because they don't want the companies protested against. Huge story. I don't really care. I don't, I've never cared about an ostrich in my life. I'm not going to start now. But it's a huge story, huge political issue going on right now. And it's like, it's just funny the amount of random things you see on the trip. It's like, man, I might have seen the hay truck going there when it's like, it's just random. And I have no idea if that hay truck, it could have just been a hay truck delivering hay to some cows. I have no idea, but interesting little place. But anyways, yeah, I had my day in Salmo there. I like Salmo for no reason. There's nothing there. It's famous for having the Shambhala Music Festival, which is like a 25 or 26-year-old. The festival's 25 or 26 years old. I guess like it's an EDM festival, like a dance music festival, a giant rave. I have never been. I have heard stories of people indulging in a heck of a lot of substances and really partying there on the Salmo River, the same Salmo River that I was at. Not in the same spot, but I believe it flows through the festival grounds. But I've heard some crazy stories. It's a thing I wouldn't mind going to, but at the same time, some of these festival people, I think, would drive me crazy. So it's like some of these people talk about how great these festivals are, but then I see them and I'm like, you guys are not like me. And I think, in fact, I would hate being around all of you. So anyways, it's something I would like to try, but also like, I don't know if I actually do. I'm also 37, and I don't know if an EDM music festival is my scene at all. But I've heard stories and I've heard it's amazing, but again, I don't know if I'm going to go at this point in time. I might just drive through Salmo just like I did there. But anyways, let's just play the next clip. Well, it's day 69, nice, of my big summer van life road trip. And being day 69, that means this trip is officially 1 day longer than my big summer van life road trip of last year. And that's really all I was set out to do here. I wanted to come out here, have a bigger, longer trip, and now it's officially 1 day longer. And that means I can go home, which I'm excited for. Frankly, I was going to go home today, but I was like, you know what? I think I'm just in my feels because it's so windy. The wind has kept me off the lakes here. It kept me off the lakes in Kananaskis, and I'm tired of it. But I was like, no, you can't go home because you're in a bad mood. Wait another day and then see what you want to do. So I drove up to Summit Lake, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm staying. And then I went into Cusp to do some van lifing, and that's what I did. I stayed one more night, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But it's 69 days already. 70 is guaranteed. But we'll see how long I last, but probably won't be too much longer. So I am ready to go home. So I was absolutely ready to go home at this point. I really did consider going home and making day 69. Like, this video itself could have been a driving most of the way home day, and then day 70 would be finishing off the drive home. Like I said, I was totally ready to go home. I was burned out. And then also the wind. I mentioned it in there. The wind had now been a factor, and it had been preventing me from doing all the things I wanted to do for this video I'm making right now. Every clip in it, I've complained about the wind preventing me from doing what I wanted to do. And it's like, then when I get to New Denver, I want to canoe on Slocan Lake. That's why I went there. It's a beautiful lake. It's my favorite lake in BC to canoe. Canoeing, the first trip I went on in my van, the first real trip in my van, it was a week-long van life trip. 4 years ago, I went to canoe on Slocan Lake. I canoed 4 days. That was my first real van life trip. That's what I went there just to canoe. And then it's like, you go there, you can't canoe. So it's like, you're kind of just killing time. It's like, that's what I've been doing all these clips. It's kind of like I'm just killing time because I can't do what I want to do. And then getting to New Denver was an absolute bummer. And like I said, I was ready to go home. It's like, no, don't go home right now. Wait out a day. and then decide if you are ready to go home. And then because of that, I went up to Summit Lake. And when I went to Summit Lake, it was less windy. And I was like, you know what? I want to canoe this lake. That's what I want to do. I definitely am canoeing this lake. So I decided that day, well, spoiler alert, day 70, I'm going to canoe on Summit Lake. But I decided I wanted to canoe Summit Lake. So I was like, yeah, you know what? It was worth staying an extra day. Then I went up to Nakusp, van life there. I also wanted to canoe I wanted to go to Nakusp and canoe on the lake there. I think it's Arrow Lake. But at this point, my the wind was out of my sails. I was ready to go. I wanted to canoe Summit Lake because it was small and easy. I didn't really want to go onto Arrow Lake. Also, up in Nakusp, there is a hot springs, which is further away up the road. But it's like I was kind of just done at this point. So it's like I didn't go up to the hot springs. I didn't want to canoe on Arrow Lake. I kind of just went to Nakusp to hang out, to think about things, see if I was ready to go. But yeah, that was day 69. I was just extending my trip for a day, just kind of because. But anyway, let's play the next one. Well, it's officially day 70 of my big summer van life road trip. And if you look behind me, that's a cemetery. Since it is the beginning of October and in the spirit of spooky season, I van life right across the street from it. But with that being said, nothing bothered me last night. I wasn't visited by any spirits, but I am going to get out of here ASAP. And with that being said, I'm going to go do some canoeing. So this is Summit Lake. It's literally next to a rest stop. And after seeing it yesterday on the way to Nakusp, I knew canoeing here today was what I wanted to do. And it didn't disappoint. It's got great views, and I saw a beaver dam. I also saw a ton of these, which I think might be invasive. Either way, I was back on the road and headed to Roseberry. Is that a roseberry? Man, I'm full of questions today. Is that a shipwreck? Well, technically, a barge wreck, but yeah. From here, I walked the old rail trail to this old train bridge to look for some spawning salmon. I saw a couple, but they all looked pretty sad. So I headed back to New Denver for some sunset grilling on the lake shore. So that spot next to the cemetery was actually a pretty good spot to van life. I don't usually like to be that close to a cemetery. I feel like it's a little rude. Let dead things lie where they are without disturbing them. Not like I was really disturbing them at all. And I did see that there was a house literally right next to the cemetery on the other side of the road, which was closer than my van was. So I didn't feel bad. And it actually was a pretty good spot. I didn't see any spots on I-Overlander in Nakusp, I don't think. And a lot of places that naturally would be good for van lifing had signs up said no overnight parking. Probably because there's a lot of people like me that van life there, so they think we're a nuisance. So overall, it's a pretty good spot. Then I went back to Summit Lake. I really enjoyed my paddle on Summit Lake. Not a big lake, but it's a nice scenery lake. Nice scenic lake. I really did quite enjoy it. It wasn't nearly as windy as being down in New Denver itself. Other than I've seen so many of those mussels, which I believe is invasive, which is a bummer. I was told that those are the invasive type on TikTok. I do not read a lot of my TikTok comments because I actually don't like TikTok, but I have been posting on there. Yeah, someone said those are the invasive zebra mussels, but I saw a ton of shells in that lake. Not a deep lake, so you look down, and quite a few places you get to see it full of shells, full of shell pieces. And I will say the original plan for that day, I was making a video and I was going to do the New Denver double dip. So I was going to canoe in that lake, then go back to New Denver, and as long as the wind had cleared, I was going to go put my canoe in Slocan Lake. But then after seeing all those mussels, and I've seen so many signs throughout this trip all over talking about invasive mussels, stop the spread of disease. Waters and lakes, you can't even put outside canoes into it because of worrying disease and also the zebra mussels. So it's like I couldn't in good conscience do the double dip. I could not put my canoe back in the water. New Denver doesn't have any car washes or anything. I couldn't spray it off. So there's just no way to do it. So I couldn't, but I enjoyed my canoe there. I would canoe it again, to be honest with you. There is a provincial park on that lake too. It was closed while I was there, but it wouldn't be a bad spot to camp. No cell service, but wouldn't be a bad spot to camp at all. What else do I want to say? I went to Roseberry. So on that highway, I don't even know what number the highway is. Maybe Highway 6? I have no idea if that's the right number. But anyways, it goes Hills, Roseberry, New Denver, Silverton, and then you got Slocan Village down here. Hills is not a lot. There's not a lot to Hills. Roseberry, there's not a lot to Roseberry. New Denver is like a proper village. Silverton is smaller than New Denver, but it's so close. They're kind of like, I don't want to say they're one and the same, but they're only like 6 minutes apart, so they're a little more one and the same. And then Slocan is, again, it's like a proper village. But Roseberry, not a lot to Roseberry. It was nice to get down there, go right to the beach. The shipwreck is cool. It is a barge wreck. I don't know for sure, but they used to barge train cars, train engines, whatever. Both, all the trains. They used to barge stuff back and forth because it's a silvery Slocan valley. So there's a ton of mining history. The rail used to be very important. So there's actually a train. There's a rail. Now it's a rail trail. But all the way from Summit Lake, well, I guess beyond Summit Lake, down to through Hills to Roseberry into New Denver. But then it takes you up to, I think it's called Three Forks. Three Forks? Yeah, I think it's Three Forks, which is up by Sandon. I did not go up there. I've been to Sandon once, but I have not been to, I guess I drove through Three Forks. I've not taken the rail trail up there, but it follows down through Roseberry. So that's where that train bridge is from, is that same rail trail from Summit Lake all the way to Three Forks. Anyways, the barges, they used to barge stuff back and forth in the railway days. And I don't know for sure if that barge was part of that or if it was barging other things, but it's like literally right on the shore in Roseberry. So it's kind of neat if you're in that area just to stop in, walk down to the beach, see the barge. Obviously it looks cool from a drone, but it's cool just to like be right there. It'd be nice to paddle around in that area and then go up on the the rail trail. It's just a nice little spot. And then I just went back to New Denver, grilling on that spot. That is a little picnic table right down from like a little parking area. You cannot park there overnight, but it's like a nice day use area. I think there's some trails there and just a beautiful spot. You got a great view. I've done some swimming there in the past. It's a little colder this time, a little windier, but not a bad spot to have a dinner at all. But let's play the next clip. Well, it's day 71 of me posting a short for every day. I'm on my big summer van life road trip. 71 days. That's more than 10 weeks, and that's almost 20% of a year. That is crazy, but I'm still out here. I slept last night on the streets in New Denver. Then I headed down to the water to say my final goodbye to Slocan Lake. Then I went to the Cohan Reflection Garden to reflect on it. Namaste. I then went into Silverton to the Camp Cafe. Then I hit the road. Pretty quickly, I got stuck behind the slow log truck, so I pulled into a rest stop to let that truck get ahead and to spend even more time admiring the beautiful Slocan Lake. Eventually, I got back on the road and headed towards Castlegar. I got distracted by Syringa Provincial Park, where I decided that I was ready to go home. I'm laked out. So I hit the road again, this time for realsies. I stopped in Christina Lake for some authentic Palestinian food, not a political show, and I was back on my way. I did slop all over my shirt, so I had to pull over to the river in Grand Forks to change. I admired their slag pile and used their bathroom, where I cannot believe this toilet placement. That's psychopathic. I gassed up, hopefully for the last time, and I was on the road again. This time I stopped in Greenwood at their 100-plus-year-old smelter tower, one of my favorite places to van life. And that is how you spend your final night on the road. Well, there you go. That was my final night. I don't think I really have much more to say about New Denver. I like New Denver. I love Slocan Lake. You saw it there from the rest stop. Just absolutely beautiful. Great to canoe. Interesting place to go. I can't say much more about it. It was nice to go to the little Kohan reflection garden. I think Kohan might mean reflection in Japanese or Korean or something like that. There was an internment camp in the New Denver area back in World War II where they hosted Japanese prisoners of war, I guess. So that's why there's a reflection garden there. But it's always nice to reflect on things. I don't always reflect on things. I'm out there doing things. I don't always think about it, but it's nice to just have a moment to think. And then especially like this, it was my last day there. Have a moment to think about the trip. Think about where I am. Think about where I'm going. Think about things. Nice little spot on the shores of Slocan Lake. And again, Slocan Lake, absolutely beautiful. From there, I went down. I went to that Syringa National Park. I was driving toward Castlegar, and I saw the Syringa sign. I was like, I'm going there. Nice little detour. I don't really know why I went there. I just saw it on I was already ready to go home, but I saw a sign. I decided to go up there. It was nice. I found firewood on the beach. There was a day use area, and there was a stack of cut firewood. Not cut. It was like cut rounds, but not chopped up. And there was nobody around, and I saw that firewood. I'm like, I'm taking that firewood for tonight. So I took it. That's where that firewood for that fire in Greenwood came from. Was from Syringa. So I'm glad I went to Syringa, even though it was a detour. From there I just went to Christina Lake. I really wanted to go to Christina Lake. That food stand I went to, the Palestinian guy, I first found that guy 2 years ago on the end of my trip when I was driving through town. He was like the only thing open in town. And it was, he's a Palestinian guy. And it was like October 4th or 5th, maybe October 6th of 2 years ago. So then, obviously, since then, October 7th, the whole Israel-Palestine conflict really kicked off. And he has an interesting backstory, which I will not fully get into. But the first time I met him, I had a really long discussion about just Israel-Palestine, the history and all that stuff. And then right after I left, the conflict started. I guess some would argue that it didn't start that day. But anyways, it really kicked off that day. And the first thing I thought of was that guy. And then last year I wanted to go swing by his shop and talk to him again. But he was closed for the season when I went there. So now 2 years later I went by, so we had a good conversation about the situation that's going on, just life in general. Really interesting guy. I really like the guy. Great place to stop if you're in Christina Lake. Yeah, after that I went to Grand Forks. It's pretty much that. And then I went on to Greenwood. I will say Grand Forks is one of the few places where I've got the ick, as they say. I just showed up in the first time I went there. I showed up and it was like, I just got bad vibes immediately. And then I was at the park and then I went to a different park and I got even more bad vibes for reasons. Then I went to the grocery store and I was looking around at some of the people and it was like, I just need to get out of here. So I left. I just left Grand Forks. That was 2 years ago on my trip. So I just went back and like I said, I showed that bathroom. Obviously, I'm making fun of it for being a psychotic or psychopathic, that toilet placement, but it's just very Grand Forks having a terrible toilet placement in the public bathrooms. But I have softened my stance on Grand Forks, and I actually have seen quite a lot of deer in Grand Forks. I don't think it's as bad as my first impression led me to believe. And my stop this time, very nice. Right on the river. Saw the slag pile. It wasn't bad at all. With that being said, spent the night in Greenwood. But before I talk too much about Greenwood, we'll play the last clip. Well, it's day 72 of me posting a short for every day. I'm on my big summer van life vacation. And 72 days That's enough for me. I'm going home. I'm going home. Today's going to be my final day, and I'm genuinely excited to go home. I've enjoyed my time out here. I've enjoyed my time with you, but I'm just ready to go home. When I woke up this morning, it was 2 degrees. It was cold. Still is cold. So I got my hat on and my hands are cold. Well, you can't really see my breath, but I assure you, it is cold. Anyways, I think the first thing we're going to do for my final day is do a bit of a beard check. So I'll splice in some video of me posting my beard on the first day, compare what it looks like. That's pretty decent beard growth, if you ask me. But with that being said, I got to get out of here. I'm going to go to town, grab some breakfast, go to the bathroom, and we're going to hit the road. Because we got 5 hours of driving today. I'm not really sure. I haven't Google mapped it. I know where I'm going. Let's go. First, I need to say goodbye to Greenwood's Copper Smelter Tower. This thing was built in 1901, and it's a great way to experience BC's mining history. Then I went to the public bathrooms in town. I am so tired of using public bathrooms. I then went to the Copper Eagle for breakfast. I got a chai latte and a road burrito. Then I hit said road. I had a 5-hour, 400+ kilometer drive to do today. I'm going to make my first stop at my parents' house in a Soyuz, because if I didn't, they'd be hopping mad. I checked out my mom's new used Mercedes, my dad's new Christmas light haul. Then he loaded me up with free junk, his old bike, and my mom insisted on feeding me lunch. Then I hit the road for good. Or until I was distracted by the opportunity to make a BJ joke. What wasn't a joke is this $10 bag of apples, or even better, this $11 bag of peppers. Shout out to Karamias. That's it though. I just drove straight home from here, barring one final pee break at the Hope Slide. And that's a wrap on the 2025 edition of my ultimate summer van life road trip. I do want to thank everybody that watched these videos, that liked them, that commented. I apologize that I could not respond to all your comments. There was just too many, and I was doing too many things. But with that being said, I'm back at home. I got to go trim my beard, and more importantly, I got to go cut my lawn. So since I started day 72 of the beard check, I guess we'll do a beard check now. I have trimmed my beard. I've been home for this is day 4 that I've been home. I feel way better to have trimmed my beard. My beard felt absolutely terrible on the trip, but I wanted to keep the beard going just because it feels like the right thing to do on a big long road trip. It's like, don't cut the beard unless you have to cut the beard. But it was like dry and dirty, and I was getting like beard druff. So like if you rub your beard, you get like flakes, kind of like you would from like dandruff. But it's like, I don't know, dry skin or whatever, but it feels great to have cut my beard off. I don't mind I've had a big beard historically, and I don't mind having a big beard, but when it's at home, you can wash it on the regular and put beard oil in it and keep it up. When I'm on the road, it was not kept up well, and I was just glad to see the back of it. I'll say that. Anyways, as far as Greenwood is concerned, it's a nice spot to have my final night, my final day. I think it's a really cool spot. It's an old historic town. I think they call it the smallest city in Canada. I think that's what they call it. But I guess it used to be a city. I guess it still is a city. But it was an important town in the mining era. That's why there's that big copper smelter tower. I believe it's copper. And I didn't show it in this video, but there's a huge slag pile down by the river below that copper. Or that smelter. Like they used to have what they call Hell's Bells. These giant pots of slag that were heated up or whatever, and then they sent him down some sort of tram from that tower down the hill to by the river, and there's a huge slag pile. Really interesting. You can go walk on it. I don't think you're supposed to, but you can. I don't think there's a huge amount of rules in Greenwood. Just don't be an asshole. But yeah, you can go on, check out the slag pile. You can see like the Hell's Bells, which is like it's slag in the shape of a pot on top of the slag pile. Really interesting place. I quite like it. I like going in the tower, just looking at the tower. It's just interesting. I like the history of it. What they do great is breakfast. There's that cafe, the Copper Eagle that I went to. And then there's also the Deadwood Junction Cafe or whatever. They also have a taco place there, but only in the summer. But other than that, there's not a lot in Greenwood. So you get your breakfast, you get your chai latte or your coffee, and then you get out of town. Interesting place, but yeah, it's good to leave at the same time. And then that was it. That was my final day. So I went to visit my parents. You cannot drive through a Soyuz and not visit your parents. They will find out that you were in town, especially when you're posting a daily short saying you drove through their town. But I checked out my mom's Mercedes. I will say I do not come from a rich family. We are middle class. They paid $8,000 for a used Mercedes because they felt like it was a good deal. They were looking for a second vehicle for my mom to drive once a week. They were going to spend about $5,000, and then they got offered this Mercedes at $8,000, and they're like, yeah, I like Mercedes. So now they have a Mercedes. I think it looks pretty sweet. Like I said, my mom's probably going to drive it once a week, and it's the fullest Soyuz retiree kit. If you don't know, Soyuz, I'm not going to say rich people retire there, but upper middle class people like to retire there. So everyone's got nice cars. My parents are some of the poor people in a Soyuz, relatively speaking. But they feel now like they fit in a little bit more, having the nice car. I showed my dad's Christmas lights there. He got a Santa and sleigh, paid $1,000 for a Santa sleigh with 5 or 6 reindeer. He's very excited to get that. I'm a little bit jealous. It was a good deal. But that's where I got my Christmas light fascination from. Was because of my dad. We grew up in a crazy Christmas light house. He lost interest. I lost interest. But then over time, he's got back into it. I've got back into it. So it's cool that we share that in common. But yeah, after that, I was just driving home. Stopped at Karamias. I got those peppers, those apples. I've eaten 2 apples since in 4 days. But I cut up and froze all those peppers so I can use them as the time passes. That's pretty much it. That's the end of this trip. I just drove home. I was so glad to come home. I think I've said that on every one of these clips. I was totally ready to go home. I set out this time to have my trip longer than last year's trip. But if I didn't have that as my only goal, I probably could have come home sooner. I don't know if I should have maybe kept it as long as my last year's trip. But I do feel like I kind of stretched it out for the sake of stretching it out. I would have been okay coming home sooner. Even if I came home before those 68 days were up, if I'm totally honest with you, I probably could have came home after, on day 1 of this recap that I just showed you, after I left my parents in Banff, before I went to Calgary. I could have just started making my way home and spent 3 or 4 days working my way back into BC. Frankly, I might have enjoyed it more because maybe I would have had better weather not going up into Kananaskis and coming back through BC sooner. Maybe the weather would have been a little warmer. Maybe the wind wouldn't have hit me yet. Obviously, I don't know. I don't really regret anything I did other than going to Calgary for no reason. But all in all, it was a great trip. I'm glad I went on it. I'm glad I'm back. If all things go well, next year I'll go on another 2-month-long trip. I don't think I will go out with the objective of making it longer than this year's trip. I don't necessarily think that's necessary. I do also think like maybe multiple shorter trips might be better than just going on a huge long trip. I don't know. I've never done it that way. But I do like the 2-month trip in summer, August to September. But once you hit October, things start to close. Moy fish and chips were closed. Some of the public bathrooms I hit up were closed. In Greenwood, the taco stand at the Deadwood Junction, I think it's called Jalapeno Junction, the taco stand is closed. Things just close once you hit October or get close to October. So pushing it longer and longer, like there is a level, even campsites start to close. That Summit Lake Provincial Park was closed. A lot of things start to close early. So like pushing it for the sake of it, I think it's a little bit of a law of diminishing returns. Just sticking it out for the sake of sticking out, not necessarily worth it. But with all that being said, that's it. That was 72 days of recaps. This is the part 3. What else do I need to say? I guess after this, I think I'm going to post all my shorts together in just one long short. And then after that, I'll get back to making regular videos. That was one problem with all these shorts. The amount of time you have to spend every day. First of all, you have to do something every day to make a short about. But then it takes longer than you think to edit a short. Potentially longer than you think to edit a short. And then you're doing that every day. It takes a lot of the time and, frankly, the will to edit my longer videos, full-length videos. So my full-length videos they suffered because I was making these shorts. But I will be going back to making, I've recorded a bunch, but I'll be going back to editing, making my shorts, starting with the Skyline Trail in Jasper. That'll probably come out this weekend or maybe early next week. A little bit in flux right now. We are potentially getting a dog tomorrow. We're going to go look at dogs. There's a high probability we come home with one. Depending on how that goes, will kind of depend on how quickly I can get to editing and finish the edit on that Skyline Trail video. But once I get going, I'll get that video out, and then we'll be back to normal weekly-ish, hopefully, longer form videos of my adventure. That's pretty much the plan. Hopefully I'll do other things too. I wouldn't mind going out and doing some more adventures. I also need to get a job, but we'll see how that goes. But either way, that's it. That's the end of these daily shorts. End of this daily short recap. And yeah, peace.